Making a video, inmendham video, probably, hopefully, maybe, from outside. Not exactly a walk and talk, but as close as you're going to get from my new location, sort of, front porch. It's kind of nice, right on the street, unfortunately. So lots of noise, and they're tearing a house down a couple of houses away, which means a couple of houses. That means it's about 20 feet away. Lots of houses on the street and such, but getting used to it. It really is nice here. Bushes and a little bit of grass and brick in front of the house. Not bad. Anyway. So, just trying this to see how, whether it will work at all. Middle of the day, so there's kind of a lot of street noise. So it might not work for that reason, but we'll see. I've sort of accounted for it a couple of different ways, and we'll see if that works. So anyway, the subject is sort of goes back to modern mystic conversations about the inevitability of our function, that we're basically just reading a script that was written 1,000,000 years ago, or 1,000,000,000 years ago, or 1,000,000,000,000 years ago. It just doesn't matter how you look at it, that we're just basically reactive machines. There's just cause and effect. All the causes are already in motion, that is, all the little nuclear bits are all going where they're going, and there's nothing that can be changed. We're just going to play out what's sort of destined to be based on the configuration of all the little fingers and toes and where everything is. The placement of it will dictate an outcome. It's controlling the weather, and it's controlling us, and it's controlling everything. Old Faithful, everything is being controlled by this playing out of the thermodynamics, to use a technical term, the little bits moving. And so there's lots of people who just say what will be, will be. Fatalist kind of thinking, where we aren't participants. And in a technical sense, we're not participants. We can't generate new nuclear bits. We can't make new electrons, or new photons, or new gravitons, or new magnetons, no matter how you think of it, new ether. We can't make any new crap to change the destiny of the crap that's already moving around. So we're stuck with that. That's a truth. So in that sense, it is fatalistic. But as I'm pointing out, our brain is a universe in and of itself. It's a whole complex thing. 100 billion neurons. Lots of perception ability. That is, it can see the script. It can see the past. It can learn from the past. And that's all inevitable. That's all your fate, is to become educated. I mean, it was your fate to learn 2 + 2 = 4. There was really almost no way to prevent it. And the argument basically is that we can learn everything else just as easily as we learn 2 + 2 = 4. We can learn social responsibility, or we can learn that we have some obligation to prevent harm from happening to other organisms that are no less deserving of being spared harm than we are. And we can know that. We can know that broken leg is the enemy. It doesn't matter whether I have the broken leg or you have the broken leg. It's a bad thing. We don't want anybody to have those if we don't have to have those. And those kind of simple arguments can be made, and that we all kind of have to have our brain retrained a little bit, so it doesn't always just think it only matters if it happens to me. It's only important if it happens to me. It's only worth preventing if it prevents it from happening to me. And that isn't logical in the circumstance we're in. It's just a fact. Now, our fundamental mechanical impulse is to be selfish. to say we don't even say it, we just do it. We just act on the fact that unfortunately we feel our pain, we don't feel somebody else's, and so it just seems so much clearer to us that what happens to me is somehow more important, because I'll feel what happens to me and I won't feel what happens to them. And we can understand, again, brain can do this processing as a deterministic learning process, that doesn't make any logical sense. It's just a flaw in the dynamic of having this personal, having the two things connected, having the thinking device connected to the valuing device, and that's why we're corrupted. And we can sort of understand the corruption. And again, but I'm not arguing that understanding how flawed, how corruptible we are, fixes it, because it doesn't. I mean, I'm still a selfish asshole, even though I advocate for not being a selfish asshole. It's just the level of selfish asshole, I guess I would argue, is what we're arguing about, is that we can make these minimum efforts to save the future, and we can warrior for justice and higher efficiency, I would put it. You know, we could be high efficiency warriors, and so we can make statements about the recklessness of youth and the traps that are set up in this game we're playing, and you know, we can maybe help people understand sooner than later that there's lots of traps, and that there's lots of ways to fail in life, and you have to be prepared for the failure. You have to be prepared for the bullshit of your function, the bad functioning that'll take place because of our impulsiveness and our stupidity and our ignorance, and the fact that we have to acquire knowledge through experience. And sometimes that's the only way for us to learn some lessons, is to actually fail personally, because we can watch other people do it and kind of laugh, you know, because it didn't happen to me. You know, again, the fact that we can't feel other people's pain in any real direct way makes it possible for us to minimize it and reduce it into almost nothing. So it has no importance to us personally, or in our day-to-day life, or in our interaction with the world. So anyway, getting back to the modern mystic. So the modern mystic is basically saying, I'm not compelled to give a damn. And that's my inevitable script. That's the script I'm reading, and nothing's happened in the world that's going to change that script, in the sense that he doesn't think there's any argument on the horizon or dangling over his head or threatening him in any way that indicates that he's going to change this perspective. I guess I wouldn't even argue that he's arguing that there's no possibility of change. He's just arguing it hasn't shown up. I don't feel compelled to give a damn. I don't feel compelled to think I have to sacrifice any of my time or any of my pleasure or any of my comfort in how I'm living, sacrifice it to this cause. And so it's much like maybe my own self-indulgences. I can find them in every day. Every day I might do something where I'm planting something or doing something else, and I could be doing, you know, diligent antinatalism work. I could be doing more work, making more effort, and I don't, because my brain has rationalized an excuse for me to have some personal time or whatever, and I can make arguments, probably fallacious, but whatever, that I'm entitled and that I need it, and if I don't do that, that I'll go crazy or some other thing. I can make some excuse for me not to sacrifice, and you know, you can even bring up things like money. I mean, I don't have money, lots of money, extra money, or any of that kind of crap. But I mean, obviously, I do buy things here and there, and they're all indulgences in some way or another. And things I could probably live without. Could do it. Wouldn't be as much fun, but you can do it. And I could be doing that, could be giving it to the cause. So you get back to some kind of, there's starving people in China, you can't waste food, you can't buy expensive food, you can't do this, you can't do that. So yeah, so to some realistic extent, all of that stuff is true. And the fact is that some of that has seeped into me, and it's part of my behavior. So, but I do it merely to preserve my own integrity, or the ability to look at yourself in the mirror, because you can't rationalize being too big a pig, too big of a lazy ass, too any of that stuff. So it always has to be within the boundaries of my capacity to rationalize excuses for the fact that I don't do as much as I should, or could. Could is the word, and right after could is should, right? So I certainly, the change in behavior is modelable, right? I can imagine me changing what I would do tomorrow. I can imagine me saying, okay, I'm going to take 3 hours and just do this kind of work. And so I know I can, because I can model me doing it, I know it's within the realm of some kind of possibility. It's mechanically possible. And the only thing that prevents it from happening is that I don't have sufficient motivation, sufficient reasoning, sufficient power to overcome my selfishness to do it. And so it's not as if I'm saying that argument is illegitimate in the sense that we can all just say we're too much of an asshole. But it's like the modern mystic isn't admitting he's just failing. He's failing to be obedient to the logical facts, which is we all should be desperately interested in helping the future. We all should be almost panicked in our motivation and our passion to preserve the future, to save them from the harm we know is impending and has been created by this whole generational bullshit. So the modern mystic is really quite eloquent and quite knowledgeable in understanding how our generation, whatever you want to call it, has raped the future in terms of they've expected to have everything now. They've done this deficit spending thing. They've done all this reckless what's the word you would call it? Indentured servants. They've indentured the future to service a system that will take more from them than they get, or will have any reasonable expectation of getting back. And it's sort of built into the Social Security system, built into a lot of things where it's a scam. It's a pyramid scheme to some extent. Just to some extent. I'm not saying it's all bad. I'm saying it isn't as good as it could be as a sustainable. It could be a sustainable system. Instead, the first generation made it to their benefit. So it's almost like all this Bitcoin crap and all this other stuff. It's all engineered to get the first people in to rape essentially the last person in. And so it doesn't, there's no ethical aspect to it. Now, so the modern mystic at least admits this part of our circumstantial facts of our existence, which is human beings have made tons of errors, mistakes, and in the sense that they've been exploitive and inconsiderate to the pain that will be the price of their short-term gains. But he doesn't really, in any aggressive way, do anything to prevent that from just happening over and over and over again by doing anything to emphasize how we have to play our part in the evolution of intelligence. That intelligence has evolved. The first humans weren't as educated as us, they weren't as knowledgeable as us, and essentially, the past makes the future. it doesn't evolve if some generation doesn't evolve, doesn't play its part in carrying the ball of expanding or enhancing this elegant perspective. So he just made a few videos, aggrandizing ballet and opera and talking about how this magnificent artwork and how people are devoted to it in their life and blah blah blah, and how it's this quality thing. And it's almost so insulting to the fact that there's the same argument can be made by the quality of thinking process and philosophy, and how it can be well-constructed music in terms of the logic can be very pure and very well constructed and very well presented and very well argued. And I would argue that he is doing such a bad job of philosophy by just handing people the cop-out of fatalism, the cop-out that I'm not motivated, therefore nothing motivated me, therefore there was no force in play that compelled me, when the only thing that didn't compel you was the fact that you actually did create mental rationalizations and excuses to evade which is obvious, and to evade it overtly. So I guess what I'm saying is, any intelligent person has to be aware of the fact that the future is much bigger than the present, that any cure you come up with now will really realize its true value in the future, in the trillions of people it will help. If they would have come up with morphine 100 years earlier, it would have saved so much grief and horror and pain, for the 100 years. So it's really important and valuable for all of us to know we have to be, when we're investing in our lives, that investment has to be in this green sense, in the sense that it has to be an investment in the context of knowing we're not allowed to soil the future, we have to improve it. So to get what we want, we have to do it in the context of figuring out ways to get what we want that also doesn't break the road the future has to walk on, doesn't litter on it, doesn't pollute it, doesn't soil it, doesn't ruin it. Keeping their radios. So anyway, yeah, it's getting hammery out here. So this is probably enough of a context. So maybe I'll use this video in the what the fuck, or, well, we'll see. I'll make a decision. I'll either publish it as a video or I'll publish it as part of another video, and then I can add to my own video even. Yeah, maybe I'll critique this video and as the what the fuck tomorrow or something like that. I have some other clips, but I'm also conscious of the fact that I'm trying to preserve the identity of the person I'm living with, and so I don't want my location to be, for the trolls to go playing with it as they do. It's to be playing with somebody else's house. And so I'm a little sensitive to that. So, because I'd like to just show you around, but can't do that yet. So we'll see what happens. I mean, it seems inevitable that the nasty people will do their nasties. But I'll wait till the inevitable shows up, I suppose. No point in jumping into it until it has to be jumped into. So that's probably enough for a first effort, but not too bad. I might try a morning, early morning, to go running. But yeah, I might try that. Especially on the warmer days, it shouldn't be too bad, and it'll be quieter and whatnot. So maybe we'll see how that goes, or even an evening video when I get the lights working and some other stuff. So yeah, not a lot of English spoken, but anyway, even when it's English, it's not English. So anyway, this is a strange turn of events being here. But anyway, dealing with it so far. It's, I haven't gone completely berserk or anything. These little tiny mosquitoes here, really annoying. Anyway, so enough of the video. Until the next time. No graceful way to turn this camera off, so I have to pick it up to do it. So, until next time.